In this lesson, we're going to be learning about preloading roster information in survey solutions. Now, it's not a difficult task coding-wise, so don't worry, there's not any difficult new pieces of code to learn this lesson. The tricky part comes in is how we set up our variables and working with our data files to make sure that all the information will be uploaded in the right way. With that said, let's jump in and take a look at the problem we're working with today. For survey information where the same respondent, usually a household, is going to be revisited for a second, third or fourth survey, we can preload some roster information. The main reasons we want to do this is, first of all, it's good practice as it saves time. So we're not going to have respondent fatigue and long questionnaires where we're repeating information that was gathered during the first round survey. Also, it can give us nice, accurate data because we're not going to have any discrepancies between the two rounds. And another big reason is it will allow us to do what's called longitudinal analysis. This means that each roster occurrence, generally the household member, can be matched back to the previous data set, and we can do analysis to say things like 20% more people have gained employment or exited from employment or things like this. So the most common example of when we would preload a roster is the household roster, but there's no reason you can't apply these principles to rosters about crops or livestock and anything else that's in your surveys. There are some complexities when we preload roster information, which you'll need to consider in the way you design the questionnaire. So first of all, household members can potentially leave the household between surveys. And likewise, new members can join the household between surveys. So these are things we'll need to control for. Some variables within our roster will remain the same. The gender of respondents and their household members and the age will always be consistent. But some other variables can change between the waves, such as employment status, health status, things like this. So in this lesson, we're going to be focusing a bit in the designer tool, but we're also going to work in the headquarters. So we'll be using your personal demo server. If you don't have one already, you can sign up at this web address and it lasts for 30 months. It's for training purposes and practicing setup like we're doing today. Today we're going to take a look at an example of preloading a household roster. So first of all, we're going to jump to the designer tool where I'm going to walk you through the setup that I've used to make a preloading household roster and control for these things like new and leaving household members, etc. So what I've got first of all in our section for lesson 8 is a list question, and this is the preloaded list. So I've got this set up as a hidden question and a list type. The maximum number of answers I've given is 20, but you should check against the data you want to preload and see how large the largest household was. So from this hidden list question, I build out a roster which is based upon it. Now, inside the roster, first of all, I'm going to preload the gender and the age of the respondents, because these will be consistent. So we take it as a single select for gender, male or female, and it's a type hidden. And the same for age, except it's numeric and a hidden question. Now, the first actual question I'm going to ask about preloaded members is if they're still a member of the household, yes or no. So this is my way to control for people who've left the household between survey waves. After this, I would ask all of the questions which can change between waves. I've just got one example question here of employment status in the last month, and you can see that the enabling condition is based upon this member still being a member of the household. So that's our preloaded list and controlling for people who've left the household. The second thing I want to control for is people who have joined the household in the last period between the surveys. So to do this, I put just a single select filter question. Is there any other members of the household not discussed yet? Yes or no. If it's yes, we've got a simple list question. It's for the interviewer to fill out of any additional household members. We build a roster from that. And then, of course, because they're new members, I have no preloading information. I'm going to ask the things I don't know yet, which is their gender, age, and then into the rest of my questions, matching up to the preloaded roster. Okay, so there's our designer setup. Now the next step is going to be to import this questionnaire into the headquarters. The reason I'm doing this is once it's imported into headquarters, we can take from headquarters some tab delimited templates which we can use to populate our data. In headquarters, the first thing I'm going to do is import my questionnaire, which is here, Advanced Lessons. So once it's imported and it's in my list of questionnaires, I'm going to go to the option to upload assignments. And you can see here we get identifying data only, but we're going to look at this one today, identifying and collected data. And so what we can do here is download the zip template, and this is going to give us all the files we need to fill out with our preloaded information. Once my file is downloaded, I locate it here and it comes as a zip file. So inside of this zip file, we've got a bunch of different files, all tab delimited, and there's one file for each roster in our questionnaire and one file here for our main survey data, which is unrostered. Advanced is my questionnaire variables. That's why it's given that name. What I'm going to do is copy and paste this out. Now what I want to achieve here is I want to take the data from my previous survey, which I've got a couple of example stata files here, but yours might be in Excel or SPSS, and move the information from last survey into these files in the relevant places. So what we'll do is we'll start with our base level survey. We want to upload this question here, the list of the names of the household members from last wave. That's this variable here, PLHH list. So what I'm going to do is open up this tab delimited file in Excel. You can do that by dragging it across. And it gives us all of the variable names in one cell because it's tab delimited. But we can solve this with a quick text to columns, select delimited, and then select tab. And now we have each variable in a different cell. So what I want to do is take across all of my different survey cases that I want to respond to here. And I'm going to preload over here the variables for the preloaded household list. So I'll take a look at these in my stata file. Now to look at this file, you can see I've got 4 cases with a different unique interview ID from my last survey, and I've got the list of household members, 1 in each variable. So what I will do is copy and paste these across into my tab file. You can see that stata gives us the variable header, so we'll be sure to remove that before we save. And next I have these ones. My largest household is 4, so I'm just going to take these variables across. And put them here in my preloaded household list variables. Now what I need to do is delete away this extra row from stata. And I also need to add a couple of variables which aren't in the template. So these, if you remember from preloading setups before, is we need to tell the system who is responsible. And this is by giving the column name underscore responsible, and also how many surveys underscore quantity. So I have a survey account set up on my tablet called test lock. So that's who will be responsible, the interviewer responsible for each of these cases. And as we're preloading information, it's going to be 1 of each of these cases. So I'll save down that. That's my preloading done for the main survey data. Next, I will need to preload this file, our preloaded household roster. So same process, we drag it across to here, and we need to text to columns. Now you can see some variables here. It gives us is the roster ID as well as the interview ID. And we have this variable, preload household list. That's the names from this one, but they're going to come just in one column. Then we have gender and age to preload. And we have our other variables, Q100 and Q101, which I'm not going to preload because they are ones we want to ask the respondent themselves. So I'm going to open up my old data file of the household roster. And you can see it looks like this. This is a pretty standard Survey Solutions export. We have repeating interview IDs, as this is the household. And then we have a numeric roster ID for each member of the household. The names come through from our old list question, and we have a gender and age. So I'll copy and paste these across into the relevant positions now. With everything now copy and pasted into the correct positions, I'm going to save down this file as tab delimited. And now what I want to do is put all of these template files into a new zip folder. And that's going to be called to upload. So I'll be back in the headquarters now under the upload assignments page. Make sure to select a default responsible in case you made any mistake in your responsible column. And I'm going to upload the zip file. So if we've done everything correctly, we should see now no errors, and the system will update our 4 assignments. So onto my tablet now for that user, and I've received the 4 different cases that I had assigned. So let's open up an interview and take a look. Now, if we move to our section 8, we'll see here that we have a nice preloaded household roster. So the list question itself doesn't appear, but we get a household section for each of our people. So we can enter that, and we ask if Joe is still a household member. If he is, we're going to ask subsequent questions which we want to know. And if he's not, we record no so that we know that back in the data. And you can see next we have our little screening question. Is there any other members in the household? If it's a no, the roster is done. And if it's a yes, we can enter them here. And this works just like your usual household roster, whereby you can enter a name and the roster appears. Now for our new members, we want to take, of course, their gender and their age, because we don't know that already. So that's our example of preloading a household roster in Survey Solutions. Now I know there's a lot of playing around with the different data files and managing all of your assignments, but it's a practice which is definitely worth doing if you'll be revisiting the same households. First of all, because it allows us to make the questionnaire more shorter. We're not asking the respondents information that we already have the answer to. Secondly, it allows for longitudinal analysis, which really adds some power and makes the data more usable and effective. Thanks, and see you next lesson.